Hello there, and welcome to Mysteries of Earth, the Forgotten Depths. Beneath our feet lies a world we rarely think about, a world of silence, stone, and endless shadows. Humanity has always been drawn to the surface, the open sky, the warmth of the sun, the safety of seeing what lies ahead. Our cities stretch upward with towers that touch the clouds. Our dreams of exploration have always looked to the stars. But what if we have been looking in the wrong direction? What if the answers to our oldest mysteries were never above, but below? The surface has given us the illusion of permanence. Mountains rising over eons, rivers carving valleys, civilizations leaving monuments in stone. Yet for all its familiarity, the surface is fragile. Storms flatten it, earthquakes reshape it, floods erase it. And over the course of deep time, empires vanish into dust. The underground, however, holds secrets far harder to erase. Caverns remain long after temples collapse. Hidden chambers can outlast cities. Perhaps that is why so many of humanity's oldest mysteries seem to lead down into the dark. From the very beginning, humans have had a strange relationship with caves. They were our first shelters, protecting us from storms and predators. But they were more than survival. They became sanctuaries of meaning. Some of the earliest art we have ever found, paintings of bison, horses, and abstract symbols, still rests on the walls of caves in France and Spain. To step into those chambers today is to step into the minds of humans more than 30,000 years old. Why did they paint here, where no sunlight reached? Why did they retreat into the earth to leave their marks? Perhaps they believed caves were gateways, portals to another world, a threshold between the living and the unseen. In many cultures, caves were not just holes in the ground, they were wombs of the earth, places where life could emerge and return. The Maya called caves entrances to Xibalba, the underworld. In ancient Greece, oracles spoke from within caves, claiming their voices carried messages from the gods. Even in Hindu mythology, caves were seen as places of meditation and connection with deeper truths. Again and again, humanity looked below and imagined presence, mystery, and power. Why does this pattern repeat? Why do myths across continents, separated by oceans and centuries, point us downward? Could it be that caves were not simply symbols, but memories? Echoes of encounters with something hidden beneath the earth. Science, too, has revealed that the underground world is not as empty as it seems. Beneath the crust of the earth lies an ecosystem beyond our imagination. Microbes thriving in rocks miles below. Entire rivers running through limestone cathedrals of stone. Crystal chambers larger than cathedrals, shimmering in eternal darkness. To step into one of these caverns feels like stepping into another planet. Strange, alien, but unmistakably alive. And yet, for all its strangeness, the underground has always been dangerous for us. Darkness disorients, narrow tunnels trap, the air itself can suffocate. Perhaps this is why most of humanity turned away from the depths, choosing instead the safety of sunlight. But turning away did not mean forgetting. The myths remained, the whispers continued, and generation after generation, stories persisted that below the earth lay hidden worlds, kingdoms unseen, civilizations forgotten. Consider this. When early humans stared at the night sky, they saw infinity. Stars became gods, constellations became stories. When they stared at caves, at openings in the ground, they must have felt the same pull. An infinity in the other direction. A sky turned upside down, a darkness that seemed endless. Could it be that in those depths they believed something lived? Something older than themselves, perhaps even older than humanity itself. The deeper we look into history, the more the underground reappears. From the labyrinths of Crete to the subterranean cities of Cappadocia, from the catacombs of Rome to the vast networks under modern cities, humans have always dug below. Sometimes for safety, sometimes for secrecy, sometimes for reasons lost to time. But always, the earth remembers. And maybe this is the real mystery. For all our obsession with the stars, with what lies above, humanity has never fully abandoned the depths. Something in us has always whispered that beneath the soil, beyond the reach of light, there may be more than stone. Perhaps memory, perhaps presence, perhaps even the first civilization itself. The forgotten depths remind us of a truth too easy to ignore. The earth is layered, and so is our story. What we see on the surface is only one chapter. Beneath lies another, one we rarely read, but one that may hold answers we cannot imagine. So we must ask, if so many cultures imagined hidden kingdoms below, if caves and caverns echo with humanity's earliest art and myth, what were our ancestors really pointing toward? Imagination or memory of something real? Because if the underground was not just shelter, not just symbol, but a world in itself, then perhaps we have only scratched the surface of Earth's true history. And that leads us to our next mystery. If the depths are not empty, but alive with myth, with memory, and perhaps with more than we dare admit, then what exactly did ancient people believe was waiting for them in the shadows below? Myths of hidden kingdoms. Beneath mountains, beneath deserts, beneath oceans. Humanity has always imagined entire worlds hidden in the earth's shadows. They go by many names: Shambhala, Agartha, Patala, Shibalba, the hollow earth. Different places, different stories. Yet the pattern is unmistakable. Across continents, across centuries, cultures that never met still dreamed of vast hidden kingdoms beneath their feet. Why? Why does this story repeat? Is it coincidence? Is it metaphor? Or could it be a memory? An echo of something real that lingers in our collective imagination? Let us begin with one of the most famous, Shambhala. In Tibetan and Indian traditions, Shambhala is described as a hidden kingdom, radiant and pure, concealed in the snowy ranges of the Himalayas. It is not just a city of stone, but a place of enlightenment, a realm where beings of great wisdom live apart from the surface world, waiting for a time when they must emerge to restore balance. Some accounts describe it as physical, hidden in remote valleys or beneath the mountains. Others say it exists in a different dimension, a reality that only the prepared can enter. Yet always, Shambhala is below the world we know, a sanctuary in the depths. Now consider Agartha, a name that surfaces again and again in esoteric traditions. Described as an enormous underground realm stretching beneath continents, it is said to be home to an advanced civilization. Some stories place its capital city directly under the Himalayas. Others describe vast tunnels linking every continent to this hidden empire. In these myths, Agartha is not ruin, but perfection. Technology beyond ours, wisdom far greater, and beings who have chosen to live in secrecy. To the surface world, they are invisible, but in myth, they are eternal. And then there is the hollow earth theory, one of the most controversial ideas of the modern age. It suggests the earth itself is not solid, but contains vast inner chambers, perhaps even entire oceans and continents within. In some versions, entrances to this inner world lie at the poles, gateways into an underground realm where civilizations thrive. Sailors of the 17th and 18th centuries whispered of strange warm winds and migrating animals near the Arctic. Adventurers spoke of seeing lands where no land should be. Were they fabricating tales? Or glimpsing hints of something deeper? It is easy to dismiss these as fantasies, but pause for a moment. Shambhala in Tibet, Agartha in India, Hollow Earth in Europe and America. The Maya spoke of Xibalba, the underworld beneath their cities. The Greeks spoke of Hades, a subterranean kingdom. The Hindus spoke of Patala, a vast realm beneath the 7 layers of the earth. Again and again, in culture after culture, the story is the same. The surface is only the beginning. Why would so many people, separated by time and distance, imagine the same thing? Perhaps it was metaphor, the underground as a symbol of death, of mystery, of the subconscious. But what if it was more than that? What if these were fragments of memory, passed down through myth, of actual encounters with something beneath? Consider the psychology of myth. When people in ancient times found deep caves, vast caverns stretching into darkness, what were they to think? Without modern science, how could they explain chambers large enough to swallow cathedrals? Strange winds echoing through tunnels, subterranean rivers that seemed to vanish into blackness. The earth itself felt alive, breathing, whispering, hiding. To them, these spaces were not emptiness. They were kingdoms waiting to be named. And myths, once born, have power. They persist. They spread. They transform. A story told by firelight becomes legend. A legend written in scripture becomes sacred. And across centuries, the myth of hidden kingdoms never truly fades. Some scholars suggest Shambhala was never meant to be taken literally, but symbolically. A metaphor for the inner world, for enlightenment, for hidden wisdom. And yet, even those symbolic versions often describe it with precise detail. Mountains, rivers, architecture, rulers, gates. Why such detail for a purely metaphorical place? Why does the mind insist on giving myth a geography? Others suggest Agartha is a distortion of older stories. Tales of underground cities like Derinkuyu in Turkey, where entire populations once hid from invaders, or the vast tunnel systems found in South America. Could it be that real underground shelters inspired myths of vast subterranean empires? Or is it the other way around, that myths of empires inspired people to dig? The hollow earth theory, of course, is often ridiculed today. Science tells us the earth is solid, its core molten metal. Yet even here, there are cracks in certainty. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the deepest layers of our own planet. We have drilled only a fraction into the crust. The idea of vast hollow chambers may sound absurd, but the reality is stranger. Enormous caves already exist, mishamais, any undiscovered, some so vast, they form their own weather. If such places exist closer to the surface, is it unthinkable that deeper, stranger spaces might remain hidden? The blurred line between myth and memory is where mystery thrives. Take, for example, the Nazca lines in Peru. Enormous geoglyphs carved into desert stone, visible only from the sky. Some researchers once thought they marked runways for sky gods. But another theory whispers, what if they were markers for those below. Signals, not to the heavens, but to something underground. Or consider the stories of explorers who claim to have met strange figures in caves. In the 19th and 20th centuries, travelers wrote of luminous beings, vast underground halls and doorways sealed by stone. Were these hallucinations, born of darkness and fear, or glimpses of something real? Skeptics will say, myths are just myths, reflections of the human psyche, nothing more. And yet, how often has myth hidden truth? Once, Troy was considered only a story from Homer's imagination. Then ruins were found, and myth became history. Once, giant squids were the stuff of sailors' tales. Today we know they exist, enormous and real. How many other myths still wait for proof? So we return to the central question. Why are hidden kingdoms such a universal idea? Perhaps because they speak to a deep truth, that humanity senses something larger than itself, something unseen, something below the surface of the known. Myths are not always lies. Sometimes they are maps. And if Shambhala, Agartha, Xibalba, Patala, and Hollow Earth are maps, then where do they lead? Imagine for a moment that at least one of these myths points to reality. That somewhere beneath us, beyond tunnels and caverns, lies a place untouched by surface history, a place where another civilization endures. If that were true, what would it mean for us? Would we still see ourselves as the first and greatest? Or would we realize that we are latecomers to a much older story? The possibility alone is enough to haunt us, enough to keep the myths alive. And perhaps that is the secret. Hidden kingdoms endure in myth, not because we know they are real, but because we fear they might be. Because in the silence beneath the earth, in the caverns and tunnels unexplored, our imagination still hears echoes of life. So, are Shambhala, Agartha, and Hollow Earth fantasies? Or are they fragments of memory, passed down through each ages, pointing to something more? We do not yet know. But myths are stubborn things. They survive because they speak to something inside us, something restless, something searching, something that whispers, what if? And if the myths are maps, then the next step is clear, to follow them deeper, to ask not just whether underground civilizations could exist, but how they might survive. Survival below, if an underground civilization truly exists, how would it survive? The surface world thrives under the sun. Our crops lean toward its light. Our rhythms follow its rise and fall, and our cultures have been shaped by the seasons it creates. But what happens when the sky is gone? What happens when there is no sunrise, no sunset, no stars? A civilization below the earth would face challenges unlike anything humanity has known. Yet, if it were real, it must have found solutions. Let us imagine them. Water. The first element of life. Every civilization begins with water. On the surface, we find it in rivers, lakes, and rain. Underground, it is hidden, but it is there. Beneath the earth lies an ocean we barely understand. Vast aquifers stretch beneath continents. Subterranean rivers carve their way through limestone, flowing in silence for thousands of miles. Some are so large that explorers have mistaken them for lost seas. An underground civilization might live along these rivers, drawing sustenance from their flow. They could engineer channels, cisterns, and reservoirs to store the water. Minerals dissolved in the stone might even enrich it, creating a source as pure as any mountain spring. And if such a society had advanced knowledge, they might go further. They could extract water directly from rock, or harvest it from condensation deep within caverns. In the absence of rain, they would create their own cycles, recycling, purifying, and reusing every drop. Where the surface relies on the generosity of the sky, those below would rely on the discipline of design. Food in the darkness. But water alone is not enough. To survive, they must eat. Without sunlight, how could crops grow? Here, imagination must stretch. Modern science already shows us possibilities. Fungi thrive in darkness, feeding on decaying matter and minerals. Mushrooms could be cultivated on a massive scale, providing nutrition in place of grain. Bioluminescent bacteria might be harnessed to glow faintly, creating an eerie but functional ecosystem of light. Perhaps they would develop underground farming systems, hydroponics fed by mineral-rich water, illuminated by crystals engineered to emit steady light. Or perhaps they would use geothermal energy to power artificial suns, lamps that mimic daylight within vast cavern chambers. There is also the possibility of a diet unlike ours. Insects, worms, and other subterranean creatures could be domesticated as food sources. Protein harvested not from fields, but from colonies. Strange at first glance, yet efficient and sustainable. And if their science had advanced beyond ours, they might have mastered genetic adaptation. Crops bred to grow without sunlight, organisms designed to feed on minerals directly from stone. What would such food taste like? Strange, familiar, or something beyond our imagination? Energy without sunlight. On the surface, humanity's story has always been powered by the sun. First firewood, then wind, then solar itself, all of it tied, directly or indirectly, to sunlight. But underground, a civilization must look elsewhere. One source is heat. The Earth's core radiates energy outward, creating geothermal currents. An advanced society could harness this heat directly, drawing power from hot springs and underground magma flows. Another source is motion. Rivers underground could turn wheels, generate electricity, or drive machines. Just as surface civilizations built watermills, so too might subterranean ones, hidden in eternal night. And then there are crystals, not myth, but real geology. Certain minerals store and release energy in unusual ways. Quartz vibrates with electric potential. Piezoelectric effects could be harnessed, magnified, refined. Imagine a city glowing with crystal energy, walls illuminated by stones that hum faintly in the dark. Where we built our world on coal and oil, they might have built theirs on the hidden energies of stone and fire. Adapting the human body. But even if water, food, and power were secured, one obstacle remains: biology. Humans are creatures of light. Our eyes evolved to see in daylight. Our bodies need vitamin D from the sun. Our sleep depends on cycles of darkness and dawn. How could life continue without the sky? Perhaps those who live below would adapt. Their eyes might grow larger, more sensitive, reflecting the faintest glimmers in cavern air. Or they might lose sight altogether, evolving instead to sense through sound, vibration, or heat. Their skin might pale, lacking sunlight, or darken in strange hues, adapting to underground minerals. Their bodies might change in ways unrecognizable to us. Over generations, the underground would sculpt them into something new. Not quite human as we know it, but still intelligent, still alive. The psychology of endless darkness. Yet the greatest challenge is not physical. It is psychological. On the surface, we measure life by the sky. Days give rhythm, seasons give cycles, festivals, harvests, rituals, all tied to the heavens. Underground, there is no such anchor. Only endless darkness, only silence, broken by water and stone. What does that do to the mind? Would time itself dissolve? Would memory blur as hours and days became indistinguishable? Perhaps they would invent new rhythms. Instead of following the sun, they would follow cycles of energy, of water, of growth. Their calendars might be carved into stone, measured not by equinoxes, but by underground tides. Their rituals might celebrate fire instead of sunlight, crystal instead of stars. But even deeper is the question of longing. Would they dream of the sky? Would stories of stars become myths, told as distant, impossible wonders? Or would they reject the surface altogether, seeing it as dangerous, unstable, hostile? A world of storms and death compared to the stability of stone? The psychological transformation might be profound. A civilization without sky might think in ways we cannot imagine. Their art, their music, their philosophy, all shaped by absence, by shadow, by silence. Could we join them? If such a civilization exists, could we live among them? Could a surface dweller survive in their world? Perhaps not easily. Our bodies crave light. Our minds crave horizon. But they would look at us and see creatures obsessed with fragility. Sunlight can burn us. Storms can kill us. Floods can erase us. To them, we would seem naive. They might say, "Why chase the unstable when you could embrace the eternal stone?" And perhaps they are right. Perhaps the underground is more stable, more enduring. While surface empires rise and fall in the blink of geological time, an underground civilization might persist for millions of years, unbroken, unseen. The paradox of hidden survival. The deeper we explore this idea, the more it reveals. To survive below, a civilization must be ingenious, disciplined, and patient. But in doing so, it might surpass us. It might outlast us. We often imagine underground civilizations as weaker, hidden, fragile. But what if it is the opposite? What if survival below has made them stronger, more resilient, more enduring? And if so, then perhaps we are not the masters of Earth. Perhaps we are merely its surface story, while the true endurance of civilization lies below. Closing reflection. So how would an underground civilization sustain itself? With water drawn from hidden rivers, with food cultivated in darkness, with energy pulled from heat and crystal, with minds adapted to silence and bodies reshaped by shadow. It is not only possible, it might already exist. And if it does, then the myths we tell of hidden kingdoms are not fantasy, but reflection. We sense survival in the depths because it is there, waiting. But survival is not enough. To endure in secrecy, a civilization must also remain hidden, which leads us to the next question. If such a world exists beneath our feet, how could it have stayed invisible for so long? Architecture of the depths. When we think of cities, we picture skylines, towers rising into the air, streets buzzing with movement, lights glittering against the night. Civilization for us is something that grows upward. But what if civilization could grow downward? What if the greatest cities of Earth are not built under the sun, but hidden beneath our feet? Stone as shelter, stone as home. Imagine descending into the earth deeper and deeper until the world of light vanishes. Instead of sky, you see ceilings of stone. Instead of trees, columns of rock rising like petrified forests. And then suddenly a vast cavern opens, not empty, but alive. Cities carved directly from stone. Walls chiseled with precision. floors polished by generations of footsteps, entire neighborhoods linked by tunnels instead of roads. Where we build with steel and glass, they would build with permanence, with the bones of the planet itself. No storm could topple their towers. No fire could consume their streets. Time itself would move slower there, as stone preserves what wood and metal could never endure. Would such cities be silent? Perhaps not. Imagine the steady sound of underground rivers rushing through channels, or the echo of voices resonating through chambers designed to carry sound. The architecture of the depths would not just be physical, it would be acoustic, designed for vibration, resonance, and harmony in a world without sky. Labyrinths of tunnels. For us, roads connect cities. For them, tunnels would be lifelines, winding, branching, spiraling, a labyrinth that stretches endlessly through the bedrock. These tunnels could serve as transportation routes, marketplaces, or defensive systems. Some would be broad enough for entire caravans, others so narrow that only a single person could pass. Unlike our straight highways, their routes would follow the natural vein. Glowing ecosystems, light is the heart of any civilization. On the surface, it comes from the sun, but below it must come from somewhere else. Picture entire caverns glowing with eerie bioluminescence, walls coated with moss that glimmers in shades of blue and green, fungi sprouting like lamps, pulsing with soft radiance, rivers shimmering as microscopic organisms turn flowing water into liquid light. Such ecosystems are not fantasy. They exist in fragments even today. Deep caves in our world harbor fungi, insects, and fish that create their own illumination. Imagine a civilization not just stumbling upon these, but cultivating them, farming light as carefully as we farm wheat, and perhaps they would combine nature with engineering. Crystals harnessed to amplify glow, mirrors arranged to scatter it through tunnels, artificial suns powered by geothermal energy. Light down there would be precious, not taken for granted like ours, but revered. Rituals might surround it, stories might grow from it. For them, to create light would not just be practical, it would be sacred, echoes of what we already built. To believe in underground civilizations, we don't need to look far. Humanity has already carved its way into the earth many times. In Turkey, the city of Derinkuyu descends more than 200 feet below ground. It housed thousands of people, complete with kitchens, storage rooms, wells, and even ventilation shafts. Entire communities lived in safety there, hidden from enemies. In Cappadocia, vast underground networks stretch for miles, connecting hidden towns through secret passageways. In ancient China, emperors were buried in vast subterranean palaces, complete with chambers designed to mirror the heavens. In Peru, the Incas built tunnels said to stretch beneath mountains, some so deep that their ends remain unknown. Even in modern times, we mimic this instinct. What true underground engineering might look like, if an underground civilization truly exists, their architecture might go beyond anything we can imagine. Instead of concrete and steel, they might use stone itself as both foundation and material. Imagine domes carved directly from the earth, shaped not by stacking bricks but by hollowing out mountains. Instead of supporting beams, the architecture itself would be structural, relying on curves and natural strength. Ventilation would be vital. Some passages would act as giant lungs, channeling air through carefully calculated openings. Underground waterfalls might purify the atmosphere, using motion to generate both oxygen circulation and soundscapes. And water systems would be extraordinary. Channels carved to guide subterranean rivers through cities, aqueducts hidden in stone, fountains that recycle endlessly. Their designs might also embrace the vertical. Cities rising not into the sky, but into the depths, skyscrapers of inverted form, descending layer by layer into the rock. Each level a new neighborhood, each deeper layer reserved for different purposes: farming, housing, rituals, or governance. To us, it might feel alien. To them, it would feel natural. After all, the earth is not an obstacle. It is home, a civilization hidden by design. If such architecture exists, it explains why we have not found it. Stone conceals itself. Unlike surface ruins, which crumble and scatter, underground structures remain buried, intact, invisible. Imagine entire cities hidden beneath our feet, their entrances disguised as ordinary caves or sealed by collapses over time. We could walk above them every day, unaware of the vastness below. It raises a haunting thought. Perhaps the ruins we admire on the surface, pyramids, temples, megaliths, are not the whole story. Perhaps they are only the visible entrances to something much deeper. Psychology of underground design. Architecture is not just about survival, it is about meaning. Our surface cities point toward the heavens. Towers rise to touch the sky, symbols of ambition. But underground cities might reflect different values. Their architecture might turn inward, embracing stability and continuity. Where we reach for transcendence, they might honor endurance. Their halls might echo with symbolism, spirals carved into walls to mirror tunnels, glowing crystals set in sacred places, chambers designed to amplify sound and ritual. Their art might not hang on walls but be the walls themselves, etched into permanence. And perhaps the absence of windows, no views of horizons or sunsets, would shape their philosophy. A society without horizons might learn to find meaning not in distance but in depth. Closing reflection. So what would the architecture of the depths look like? Cities carved from stone stronger than time. Labyrinths of tunnels connecting hidden worlds. Glowing ecosystems cultivated with care. Echoes of our own underground experiments, but refined into a way of life. We think of architecture as rising into the air, but perhaps the truest monuments of humanity, or something beyond humanity, lie below, untouched, unseen. And if such structures exist, they would not only be homes, they would be fortresses, sanctuaries, perhaps even prisons of secrets we are not meant to know. But architecture is only the shell. What truly matters is the life within it. Which raises the next question. If such a civilization exists, how would they think? What would their minds, their beliefs, their philosophies be, shaped by a world of stone and shadow? That is the mystery we must now explore. Hidden societies. When we imagine civilizations, we picture crowds in open plazas, bustling markets, the noise of voices carrying through the air. But what if a civilization was never meant to be seen? What if it thrived, not on display, but in secrecy? Underground, secrecy is not just a strategy. It is a way of life. And if there truly exists a civilization beneath our feet, its society would not resemble our own. It would be hidden, layered, and encoded, designed to remain invisible to the surface world. Politics in the dark. On the surface, power often reveals itself with grandeur. Palaces, flags, armies, all visible symbols meant to inspire loyalty or fear. But underground, where shadows rule, power would wear a different mask. Imagine leaders who are never seen in the open, who exist as whispers carried through tunnels. Authority might not be declared through spectacle, but through secrecy. The more hidden a leader is, the more powerful they may appear. In such a world, politics might revolve around control of information rather than land. The one who knows the deepest tunnels, the hidden routes to resources, or the unmarked passageways, would hold more influence than the one who commands the largest army. And armies themselves. Perhaps they would not march in rows, but move like shadows. Stealth, silence, and the ability to disappear would be the greatest weapons in this hidden realm. Would such societies be ruled by kings, councils, or something stranger? Unseen rulers, their identities known only to a chosen few, their words carried through emissaries who never reveal the source. In a civilization designed for concealment, politics itself might blur into myth. Hierarchy of shadows in the depths. Survival depends on knowledge. The shallow dwellers would live near entrances, working the farms, maintaining trade. Deeper dwellers. Those who mastered these labyrinth might form an elite, their homes closer to the hidden heart of the civilization. Hierarchy could be marked not by wealth, but by depth. The deeper one lives, the more trusted they are. The closer they are to secrets the surface must never know. Symbols might separate classes. Tattoos of glowing ink, marks carved into stone, or jewelry made from rare crystals found only in the deepest chambers. These signs would not just display status, but act as a language of belonging, a silent badge that tells others exactly who you are in the hierarchy. And for outsiders, no symbols, no status, forever wandering at the edges, never permitted into the heart of society. The power of silence. Noise carries differently underground. A single word can echo down tunnels, revealing location, intention, even identity. To survive, hidden societies would adapt not to speech, but to silence. Picture people communicating with subtle hand gestures, with signs flashed in the corner of torchlight. A society where fingers, not tongues, shape language. Where silence is not emptiness, but full of meaning. Even footsteps could be coded. A certain rhythm might signal friend or stranger. A knock against stone could become a word. Drums or pipes carved into walls could transmit messages through vibration. Language in such a world would not be heard in the air. It would be felt in the bones. And what of stories? Perhaps history itself would be preserved in silence, not spoken, but carved into rock with symbols, or encoded in glowing murals that only reveal their meaning to the initiated. Symbols and coded languages. Every society leaves behind writing, but underground, writing might take stranger forms. Imagine spirals etched into stone, not random decoration, but maps of tunnels known only to insiders. Or sequences of dots and lines glowing faintly in the dark, a language hidden in plain sight. Perhaps every cavern is a library, not of books, but of walls, inscribed with knowledge. Symbols could guide travelers through the labyrinth, a carved serpent to warn of danger, a spiral to signal safe passage, a broken line to mark a dead end. What looks like art to us could be survival instructions to them. And perhaps their languages are layered. One for outsiders, simple and misleading, and another only revealed to those who know the hidden meanings. To us, it might look like meaningless scratches. To them, it would be a code passed through generations. If they exist, we may have already seen their writing. Perhaps etched into caves we call prehistoric art, or in marks dismissed as random scratches. What if those were not primitive doodles, but messages from a civilization still alive, still watching, still hiding? The art of remaining unseen for a hidden society. The greatest accomplishment is not what it builds, but what it conceals. Entrances to their world might look like ordinary caves, sealed by collapses, disguised by vegetation, or deliberately blocked with stone. To the untrained eye, nothing unusual. To the initiated, a threshold to a world below. Even movement to the surface would require secrecy. Perhaps they emerge only at night, wearing disguises or blending into the shadows. Perhaps their trade is hidden in plain sight. Objects left in forests or rivers, exchanged without direct contact. It's a haunting possibility. If they exist, they may already walk among us, but we never recognize them, because they have mastered the art of remaining unseen, rituals of concealment. Secrecy would not only be political, it would be spiritual. Entire rituals could be designed to preserve the hidden nature of their world. Initiations might involve being blindfolded, guided through labyrinths, taught to navigate without sight or sound. Knowledge itself might be sacred, revealed only in stages, each deeper layer reserved for those who prove themselves worthy. Even myths could serve as protective veils, stories of monsters in caves, curses beneath mountains. What if these were not warnings of fantasy, but deliberate attempts to scare outsiders away from the truth? In that sense, secrecy is not only survival, it is faith. What does it mean for us? If such hidden societies exist, what does it say about humanity on the surface? Perhaps we are not alone on this planet, not in the way we imagine with aliens or gods, but with neighbors just out of sight. Neighbors who chose secrecy over contact, depth over sky, silence over noise. It is unsettling to imagine. Every time we dig tunnels, every time we mine or explore, are we brushing against a world that does not wish to be found? And if they truly remain hidden, what would happen if we finally uncovered them? Would they welcome us as kin, or see us as invaders? Closing reflection. The idea of hidden societies beneath the earth is more than myth. It is a possibility shaped by necessity, by survival, by the simple truth that secrecy is sometimes the greatest strength. Politics in the dark, hierarchies measured by depth, languages built from silence and symbols, all pointing to a way of life unimaginable to us, yet perhaps already thriving beneath our feet. But secrecy does not exist in a vacuum. It often hides something powerful: knowledge, technology, or influence. Which raises the question, if such a hidden society exists, are they truly isolated, or have they always been shaping the surface world from the shadows? That is the mystery we explore next. The Watchers. Throughout history, whispers have circulated of beings who are not entirely human and not entirely absent. Beings who live in shadowed realms beneath the earth, yet who occasionally emerge to shape the fate of those above. They are called by many names: teachers, gods, demons, guardians, or rulers. Some cultures revered them, others feared them. But across the world, the story is strangely consistent. We are not the only ones writing history. We are not alone. We are being watched. Emerging from below, in ancient folklore, caves are not just dark spaces in the ground. They are thresholds, entrances not to empty stone, but to other worlds. From the Andes to the Himalayas, myths describe figures emerging from below with knowledge, tools, or warnings. The Inca believed their first ancestors rose from caves, sent to bring order to the world. In Tibetan legends, hidden masters emerged from subterranean sanctuaries to guide monks and kings. Even in Europe, Celtic and Norse tales spoke of beings dwelling beneath hills and mountains, slipping into the surface world under the cover of night. They were described as strange and radiant, sometimes benevolent, sometimes terrifying. Why this pattern? Why do so many cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, imagine powerful beings rising from beneath? Could it be that such encounters were more than imagination? Teachers from the depths. One of the most haunting motifs is that of hidden teachers. Beings who come forth not to conquer, but to instruct. Consider the Hopi people of North America. Their stories speak of ant people who lived underground. According to legend, during times of catastrophe on the surface, the ant people sheltered humanity, teaching survival skills, sharing food, and guiding them until it was safe to return above. In India, certain yogic traditions tell of enlightened beings hung in hidden realms beneath mountains, emerging only to share wisdom with chosen seekers. Their words shaped philosophies that echo through centuries. Even in Greece, the Oracle of Delphi, the voice of Apollo himself, spoke from a fissure in the earth, as if divine truth rose from the depths of stone. If these myths are not coincidence, then perhaps wisdom itself has always been tied to what lies below. Perhaps the first civilizations did not only live underground, they shaped the surface world by sending emissaries upward. Gods of the underworld. Not all watchers were kind. Many were feared. In countless traditions, the underworld is not just a place of the dead, but a domain of power. The Mesopotamians spoke of gods who ruled beneath the earth, their influence stretching into mortal lives. The Greeks told of Hades, lord of an unseen realm, where wealth and death coexisted. The Aztecs described Mictlan, the deep place where souls traveled, guided by powerful beings who could choose to aid or destroy. But what if these gods were not abstractions? What if they were memories of real entities, hidden rulers, glimpsed rarely, whose power seemed divine to those above? It is an unsettling possibility that what we once worshipped as gods may have been part of an older, hidden civilization, not omnipotent, but simply more advanced, more secretive, and far more patient than we could ever imagine. Shadow rulers. The most provocative idea is not that they appeared as gods or teachers, but as rulers. Unseen hands guiding history itself. Conspiracy theories today whisper of shadow governments, secret societies, powers behind the throne. But what if this idea is far older than we think? Imagine a council of subterranean watchers, observing the rise and fall of empires on the surface, interfering only when necessary. A whisper here, a vision there, a sudden advancement in technology or culture. Could the agricultural revolution, the sudden appearance of writing, or the leap into monumental architecture have been nudged by hidden hands? We often credit ourselves with innovation. But what if we are merely the latest recipients of knowledge, passed down in fragments by civilizations that never revealed their true faces, signs of the Watchers? If they exist, what would their presence look like? Perhaps it hides in the gaps of history, sudden leaps forward, unexplained myths, or artifacts that do not fit their time. Stories of strangers appearing with uncanny knowledge, only to vanish without trace. Even today, there are rumors of encounters, lights emerging from caves, strange vibrations in mountains, voices echoing where no human stands. Skeptics dismiss these as legends, illusions, or natural phenomena. But legends, repeated across cultures and ages, may point to something deeper, something we have ignored because it does not fit the story we want to tell about ourselves. Why remain hidden? Watchers exist. Why stay in the shadows? Why not reveal themselves fully? Perhaps secrecy is their strength, to shape history without being consumed by it, to influence without risking exposure. Or perhaps we are simply not ready. Imagine a civilization thousands of years older than ours. How would we appear to them? Like children, still fumbling, still violent, still unable to understand the consequences of our own power. Maybe they do not hide from us out of fear. Maybe they hide out of choice. And maybe, just maybe, we have mistaken their patience for absence. The fear of always being watched, it is an unsettling thought, that no matter how far we advance, we may never truly be alone. That beneath our cities, beneath our fields, beneath the very mountains we admire, another intelligence has always been there, watching, waiting, choosing when to intervene. We look to the stars for alien contact, scanning galaxies for signals, But what if the other intelligence we long for has always been closer than we dared to imagine, not in the heavens, but in the hollows of our own planet? Closing reflection. The myths of watchers, teachers, gods, rulers, all suggest a presence that moves just outside the edges of history. Perhaps they emerged from caves to guide us. Perhaps they ruled from shadows. Or perhaps they still do, invisible and silent. It leaves us with a chilling question. If they have always been here, then whose story are we truly living? Our own or theirs? And if we are not the first, but merely the latest chapter, then what else might they have built below? Technologies and worlds beyond our comprehension. That is the mystery we face next. The question of what kind of technology could thrive in darkness, in silence, in the hidden depths of the earth. Technology and darkness. We take light for granted. From the moment humans tamed fire to the day we split the atom, energy and invention have always revolved around the sun, the giver of warmth, life, and growth. But imagine a civilization that never knew the sky, a people born and raised, not beneath open horizons, but within chambers of stone and rivers of shadow. What kind of technology would they build without sunlight? How would they power their machines, nourish their bodies, and craft their world in the endless dark? To us, such a life may feel impossible. But to them, it could be the foundation of an entirely different kind of advancement. The power beneath. Energy is the heartbeat of civilization. For us, it began with wood and fire, moved to wind and water, and now rests in oil, electricity, and nuclear reactions. But without sunlight, without forests, without open winds, without solar rays, where would the underground turn? The answer lies in the earth itself. Deep beneath the surface, the planet glows with hidden fire. Geothermal heat seeps from vents, cracks, and volcanic chambers. Imagine a people harnessing this energy, not with clumsy drills or turbines, but with intricate systems of stone channels and crystal converters. To them, the breath of the earth would be as natural a resource as sunlight is to us. Perhaps they learned to shape machines that thrive on temperature gradients, the meeting of hot stone and cool cavern air, powering silent engines in the dark, a constant renewable energy source, as steady as the pulse of the planet itself. The fungi engineers. If there is no sun, there is no photosynthesis, but there is another path to life, fungi. On the surface, mushrooms are often overlooked, strange growths of decay. But beneath the ground, fungi form vast networks, exchanging nutrients, breaking down matter, and even communicating between trees in what scientists now call the wood wide web. Now, imagine a civilization that embraced fungi, not just as food, but as partners. They might cultivate glowing mushrooms to light their tunnels, bioengineered to shine brighter than fire. They could weave fungal fibers into clothing, stronger than silk, or grow entire walls that heal when broken, alive and adaptive. Perhaps their medicine is fungal too. Antibiotics, psychoactive compounds, immunity enhancers, all discovered long before humans stumbled upon penicillin. In a world without sunlight, mushrooms would be more than food. They would be the architects of survival. Would we recognize their laboratories, or would we mistake them for forests of luminous pillars, pulsing with life and intelligence of their own? Crystals as machines, but the underground offers more than fungi. It offers stone, not just dead rock, but minerals and crystals, each with unique properties. Across history, Humans have revered crystals as sacred objects, tools of healing or magic. But what if they are more than superstition? Quartz, for example, vibrates with precision, powering our watches and radios even today. Other crystals can store, amplify, or transfer energy in ways we are only beginning to understand. An underground civilization, with centuries to experiment, could have developed machines built entirely from crystalline structures. Imagine walls that hum with stored power, crystal grids transmitting energy across vast caverns, or even communication devices that resonate like living telephones. To them, crystals would not be decoration, they would be circuitry. And if we ever stumbled upon such technology, would we even recognize it as a machine? Or would we dismiss it as an unusual cave formation, never realizing its hidden purpose, the language of heat and water? Without light, perhaps communication itself would evolve differently. Picture a society where machines are designed not for sound, but for vibration, where messages travel as pulses through stone, like seismic whispers. Entire networks could be built upon the resonance of the earth, undetectable to anyone on the surface. And then there is water. Underground rivers, lakes, and pressure systems. What if turbines, pumps, and currents formed a vast hydrological technology? Water both as life and as engine. Silent aqueducts could move nutrients, air, and information across a hidden city. A civilization might live in constant symbiosis with the flow of the underground, every drop recycled, every current mapped. Their world would not echo with engines or hum with electricity. It would throb with heat, ripple with water, and vibrate with frequencies we might never hear. Biotechnology without sunlight. Our technology is built on metal, oil, and wires. But theirs, it might be alive. In the absence of light, evolution favors adaptation. What if they learned not just to grow food, but to grow tools? Imagine machines cultivated from living organisms, flexible, regenerative, and self-sustaining. Perhaps they engineered fungi to digest stone into usable minerals, or bred blind fish that carry nutrients like pack animals. Maybe their walls are laced with bioluminescent veins, providing a soft glow wherever life flows. Their medicine could be indistinguishable from their technology. Symbiotic microbes engineered to strengthen their bodies, heal wounds, or even expand consciousness. For us, this sounds like science fiction. For them, it may simply be tradition. We build skyscrapers of steel. They may have grown theirs of living tissue, adapting endlessly to the shifting stone. Machines that see without light, without the sun, eyes would lose their purpose. Sight itself would need reinvention. Perhaps they crafted sensors tuned not to visible light, but to heat, vibration, and sound. A machine might see the way bats do, mapping space through echolocation. Or perhaps their technology taps into electromagnetic fields, reading subtle shifts in minerals and currents, creating an entirely different sense of vision. To us, their devices would appear inert, lifeless. But in their hands, these tools might reveal entire landscapes invisible to human eyes. They would see the pulse of a living cavern, the warmth of a flowing river, the resonance of crystals speaking to each other. For them, the dark is not a barrier. It is a canvas, a different path of advancement. We measure progress by our own story: fire, bronze, iron, electricity, silicon. But what if there are other ways to climb? An underground society might never discover combustion engines, airplanes, or satellites. they would have no need. Instead, they could master energy conversion through heat, bioengineering through fungi, and long-distance communication through resonance and crystal networks. Their world would not look like ours, but it could be just as advanced, perhaps even more so. Machines silent and alive, glowing softly in the dark, integrated seamlessly with the earth. Would we recognize such a civilization as technological? Or would we dismiss it as myth, blind to the possibility that progress can take many forms? Closing reflection. Technology in darkness does not have to mirror our own. It may be stranger, subtler, and far older than we imagine. Geothermal engines, fungal laboratories, crystal networks, living machines, all could exist beneath our feet, thriving in the shadows, invisible to us. And perhaps we have already stumbled upon their creations. Strange glowing caves, mysterious crystal formations, unexplained underground lights. What if these were not natural accidents, but remnants of a hidden science we cannot yet comprehend? It raises the question, if such technology exists below, who is using it now? Who maintains the glowing fungi, the humming crystals, the silent machines? To answer that, we must turn not to the tools themselves, but to the ones who built them. A people who may still be alive, moving in secrecy beneath our world, signs and silences. Not all mysteries are found in the light. Some reveal themselves through absences, disappearances, distortions, and whispers that refuse to be explained. When we ask if an underground civilization could exist, the answer may not come in the form of ruins or relics, but in something far subtler, the trail of signs left in silence. Across history, there have been stories of people vanishing without explanation, of tunnels appearing where no maps predict them, of signals arriving from nowhere and going nowhere. Each of these anomalies could be dismissed as coincidence, or perhaps as something else. Could these be the fingerprints of those who live below? The people who vanish every year, thousands of people go missing worldwide. Some are tragedies with clear explanations, others accidents, and some crimes. But then there are those that simply defy reason. Whole search teams comb landscapes where footprints vanish mid-step. Explorers are swallowed into caverns, never to emerge. Climbers descend into sinkholes and are gone, without a trace. Some cases bear chilling details. Clothing left neatly folded, equipment abandoned as if no longer needed, paths that lead into rock itself. The forests of North America, the Siberian taiga, the vast deserts of Asia, all are littered with such stories. Could it be possible that some of these disappearances are not random, but the result of encounters with something beneath us? If an underground civilization wished to remain hidden, would the quiet removal of the occasional wanderer be the simplest method? And if so, how many vanishings are not accidents, but silences imposed by design? The labyrinths beneath. Earth is riddled with tunnels, caves, and chambers, so vast that even today we have only mapped a fraction of them. Some are natural, carved by rivers or lava flows. Others, however, raise questions. Ancient underground cities like Derinkuyu in Turkey stretch for miles below the surface, complete with ventilation systems and living quarters. But who built them, and why? Officially, they were shelters. But their scale hints at something more. Entire populations lived below for centuries, almost as though hiding from something above. Elsewhere, tunnels exist where none should be. Vast networks in South America, unexplained passages in Europe, caverns beneath the deserts of the Middle East. Some connect regions separated by impossible distances, as if carved by hands with knowledge we no longer possess. Why build so much underground, unless there was a reason, unless there was someone or something already there? And what if these labyrinths are not abandoned? What if some are still in use, their entrances sealed, their maps erased, their presence deliberately forgotten, signals without source? In the age of satellites and global monitoring, we like to think the planet has no secrets left. Yet, every so often, we detect signals we cannot explain. Unusual bursts of radio static from beneath the ground, rhythmic vibrations that resemble machines, yet emerge from regions no technology should reach. Miners report hums that vanish when approached. Seismologists detect patterned tremors, too regular to be natural. Even stranger are the lost signals. Radio transmissions that vanish into the earth itself, absorbed as if by some unknown infrastructure. Could this be interference from subterranean networks, systems designed to carry messages not across the sky, but through stone? If an advanced underground society existed, would they not have mastered communication, invisible to us? Resonances we mistake for noise, signals we dismiss as error? Perhaps we have already overheard their conversations, without ever realizing it. Archaeological ghosts. When we study the ruins of past civilizations, we expect to find traces, pottery shards, tools, bones. Yet in some places, the evidence feels incomplete. In South America, stories persist of chambers sealed beneath pyramids, rooms never excavated. In Egypt, unexplored shafts lie hidden behind collapsed walls. In Asia, legends tell of entire cities swallowed into the ground, their remains never rediscovered. What if these gaps in history are not accidents of erosion or disaster, but deliberate concealments? Imagine a people skilled in erasing their traces, ensuring their existence remains only in myth. Would archaeology not appear exactly as it does today, fragmented, incomplete, filled with gaps where something important should be? Absence is not proof of non-existence. Sometimes, absence is proof of intention. The silence that protects. If there were a civilization below, one far older than our own, how would they remain hidden? The answer might be simpler than we think. Silence. Silence of record. No inscriptions left for us to read. Silence of presence. Vanishing into tunnels before discovery. Silence of influence. Guiding from shadows without ever stepping into light. Such a civilization might not wish to conquer or reveal itself. Instead, it may thrive on being unnoticed. Every missing explorer, every sealed passage, every unexplained hum could be part of this veil. And so the absence of proof, the silence itself, becomes the strongest evidence of all. After all, isn't silence what we would expect from a society that does not want to be found? Reading between the shadows, what does all this mean? Disappearances, tunnels, signals, gaps in archaeology. They are fragments, hints, possibilities. Alone, each is dismissible. Together, they form a pattern of silence. Perhaps we are not supposed to find proof, at least not easily. Perhaps the true skill of those who live below lies not in building, but in erasing, in remaining invisible, even as they shape the world above in ways we cannot measure. It leaves us with an unsettling question. Are we the watchers of the earth, or are we the ones being watched, studied, and managed by something beneath? Closing reflection. In the end, the story of signs and silences is not about what we can see. It is about what we cannot. Disappearances that leave no bodies, tunnels that lead nowhere, signals that fade without explanation. Each silence invites us to wonder, not only if something is there, but why it chooses to stay hidden. Maybe we are not meant to find them yet. Maybe we never will. Or maybe the very act of searching is what draws their gaze to us. And if silence is their shield, what happens when the silence breaks? A mirror to ourselves. What if the legends of underground civilizations are not only about them, but about us? Every myth humanity tells, whether of gods in the sky, spirits in the forests, or civilizations beneath the ground, reveals as much about our own minds as it does about the unknown. When we whisper of hidden realms below, when we dream of those who live in the darkness, we are also speaking about our deepest fears and our greatest hopes. The underground is more than a setting for mystery. It is a mirror, a reflection of what we long for and what we dread. To study the myth of hidden civilizations is, in a way, to study ourselves, the darkness we project. Darkness is not empty. It is a canvas. In the absence of light, the human mind paints its own pictures. Why is it that so many cultures imagine terrifying beings in caves, monsters waiting in tunnels, demons rising from below? Perhaps because the underground is the perfect metaphor for the unconscious, the part of ourselves we do not see, do not control, and often do not understand. What we bury, we fear. Our anger, our grief, our forbidden desires. Could the underworld myths, Hades, Xibalba, the Christian hell, be expressions of that buried shadow? A way for ancient people to give shape to emotions and impulses they could not otherwise face? If so, then the stories of terrifying subterranean civilizations might be less about them and more about our terror of what lies within ourselves. The hidden other becomes the reflection of our hidden selves. The longing for guides, but not all underground myths are dark. For every demon in the depths, there is also a teacher. Legends tell of wise beings who emerge from caverns to give knowledge, inventors, healers, prophets. In Tibet, Shambhala is not a place of horror, but a utopia beneath the mountains. In Native American traditions, ancestors emerge from below to lead humanity to the surface. In countless stories, those who live beneath are not enemies, but guardians. Why does the human imagination place wisdom in hidden places? Perhaps because knowledge itself feels hidden from us, locked away in mysteries of the universe and the mind. By creating stories of subterranean teachers, we project our longing for guidance, for answers, for someone older and wiser to help us navigate the chaos of existence. The underground is not only a symbol of fear, it is a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in darkness, light may emerge. The psychology of the hidden other. Every culture has an other. Sometimes it is a tribe beyond the horizon, sometimes spirits beyond the veil, sometimes beings beneath the earth. This other serves a purpose. It helps us define who we are. By imagining those below, we contrast ourselves above. By telling stories of hidden societies, we draw boundaries between light and shadow, surface and depth, known and unknown. But psychology tells us something deeper. The other we invent is rarely entirely alien. It is often ourselves, distorted. We give our fears and flaws to the underground beings so we can face them at a safe distance. We imagine their powers, their knowledge, their mysteries, because we secretly wish we had them ourselves. In this way, the hidden civilization becomes a dream mask, a way of seeing our own fragility, our own longing, without admitting it directly. Fragility in stone. Why do myths persist that whole cities lie below, sealed away, surviving in silence? Perhaps because deep down, we know how fragile our surface world is. Civilizations fall, empires collapse, floods, droughts, wars, diseases, all have swept away cultures once thought eternal. To imagine a world beneath is to imagine a safeguard, a backup civilization waiting in the shadows. It is comforting to believe that if our world ends, theirs continues. That somewhere, hidden away, life endures. These stories may not be about them at all. They may be our subconscious attempt to soothe the fear that everything we know could vanish overnight. Underground myths become a survival fantasy, a whispered assurance that humanity is not as fragile as it feels. Dreams in reverse. Think about it. We dream of the stars, of reaching upward into infinity. At the same time, we dream of civilizations beneath, stretching downward into eternity. The sky and the underground are opposites, yet in our imagination, they serve the same role. Both represent the infinite. Both are places we cannot fully explore. Both allow us to project what we hope for and what we dread. In a way, the underground civilization is simply the mirror of our dream of aliens. Both are others beyond reach. Both are unknowable, and therefore, both become screens for our imagination. Maybe the reason so many cultures tell these stories is not because such civilizations exist, but because we need them to exist. We need mirrors to project our questions onto, whether above the stars or below the ground. When myth becomes memory. But here lies the true mystery. Sometimes myths turn out to be memories. For centuries, Troy was thought to be a myth until it was found. Flood legends were dismissed as stories until we discovered ancient shorelines that proved massive floods did reshape human history. Could it be that our myths of hidden civilizations are also rooted in some forgotten truth? Perhaps there were once groups who lived below for survival. Perhaps echoes of these real histories became woven into legend. Perhaps the mirror reflects not only psychology, but memory blurred across time. If so, then the underground civilization is not just a metaphor. It is a distorted recollection of something, seeing that truly was. The mirror stares back. So what do these myths ultimately reveal about us? That we fear our shadows, that we long for wisdom, that we sense our fragility, and that we project all of this into stories of hidden others. But mirrors do more than reflect. They also stare back. To ask whether underground civilizations exist is also to ask, why do we need them to exist? Why does the human mind insist on imagining them again and again? What part of ourselves are we really trying to understand? The answer may not lie in caverns of stone, but in caverns of the mind. Closing reflection. The myths of underground civilizations may or may not point to a real people, a hidden society beneath our feet, but they certainly point to us, to our psychology, our fears, our hopes, our need to imagine others who embody what we cannot face directly. In the end, the underground is not only a place we fear to enter, it is a place within ourselves, a mirror that reflects our shadows and our light. And if the myths are both mirror and memory, then perhaps they are preparing us for what it means to truly encounter the unknown. Because what happens when the mirror is no longer myth, but reality? What happens when we no longer project, but finally meet the face that stares back. The final descent. What if the story of the first civilization has been written in the wrong direction? We look to the stars, the oceans, and the ruins of the surface, imagining that the origins of mystery must be out there, somewhere above or around us. But what if we've been mistaken? What if the true first civilization was never on the surface at all, but below? Hidden in silence, carved into the bedrock, erased from memory, yet whispered through myth. This is the final descent, not into a cave of stone, but into the layers of possibility, history, and imagination that have shaped humanity's obsession with what lies beneath. The first home, the first kingdom. Imagine the earliest humans, before temples, before pyramids, before cities of stone. Where did they find shelter? Not always in open plains or forests, but often in caves. Caverns were the first sanctuaries, the original homes. From there, it is not hard to imagine entire societies building downward instead of upward. Why risk storms, predators, and floods when the earth itself offers protection? If survival meant retreating underground, could the very first true civilization have begun there? Think of it. Tunnels carved by fire, chambers lit by primitive torches, networks of families living in the bowels of the earth. Over generations, their knowledge could have deepened. Their connection to the underground world could have grown until it was not just survival, but identity. Is it so unthinkable, then, that the first real human kingdoms might have existed not above ground where we expect them, but in the shadowed depths where permanence is easier to preserve? Layers of earth, layers of story. The earth itself is layered: soil, stone, magma, core. Each layer holds memory, fossils, minerals, echoes of events millions of years old. Civilizations, too, are layered. Ours rests upon the ruins of others, each Neustan, new culture burying the one before. But what if this pattern goes deeper than we realize? What if beneath every surface, culture lies not only the remains of the past, but the possibility of a hidden continuity, a thread of civilization that never left the underground, one that may stretch back farther than we can imagine? The myths of Shambhala, Agartha, the Hollow Earth, they are not random. They are stories repeated across continents, across centuries, whispering that the earth itself holds more than soil. It holds memory, and perhaps inhabitants. Could it be that the layered story of humanity is not only vertical in time, but vertical in space? Surface cultures rising and falling, while a subterranean counterpart endures in silence. Our place in the descent. To explore this possibility is also to ask about our place in the grand story of Earth. We see ourselves as the culmination of history, the builders of cities, the explorers of space, the masters of science. But what if we are not the pinnacle, only one more chapter? If a civilization existed before us, below us, then our role becomes something different. Not the end of the story, but one layer among many. We may be the surface voice, while another, older voice whispers from beneath. This is humbling. We are not the only possibility. We are not the only architects of thought, of culture, of memory. If Earth itself has carried civilizations in multiple directions, above and below, then humanity is simply one participant in a larger, layered epic. The descent as symbol. But there is more to this story than literal possibility. The descent has always been a symbol. Every myth of underworlds, every journey into caverns, every tale of heroes, venturing below, is also about the human spirit, descending into itself, into shadow, into the unconscious, into mystery. To talk about underground civilizations is also to talk about us, about how we imagine what is hidden, how we confront fear and longing. The descent is not only geological, it is psychological. It is the story of how we face the unknown. And perhaps that is why these myths have lasted so long, because they are not only about whether there is someone down there, but whether we are brave enough to descend into the questions that lie beneath our own surface. What lies beneath the feet of the world? So where does this leave us? We have explored the myths, the science, the disappearances, the silences. We have wandered through labyrinths of story and imagination. Yet the central mystery remains. What truly lies beneath? Are there forgotten civilizations waiting in hidden vaults of stone? Are there watchers who rise in secret to guide or control us? Are there teachers, or monsters, or simply echoes of ourselves, projected into darkness? The truth is, we do not know, and perhaps we are not meant to know, not yet. The underground resists certainty. It gives only fragments, whispers, possibilities. It is a riddle written in stone. But perhaps that is the point. Perhaps the greatest mysteries of Earth are not meant to be solved easily, but to remind us of humility, curiosity, and wonder. The closing reflection in the end, the question of whether the first civilization was underground, is less about discovery and more about perspective. If it was, then we are heirs, not only to the stars above, but to the shadows below. If it was not, then the persistence of these myths tells us something profound about ourselves, that we need the underground as a mirror, as a mystery, as a reminder of how fragile and how imaginative we are. We are part of Earth's layered story, not the first, not the last, but one thin chapter written upon the crust of something vast. And perhaps one day, someone will look back at us the way we look back at those imagined others, as shadows, as myths, as whispers from the past. So when you step outside and feel the ground beneath your feet, remember this: the surface is only half the story. The other half lies below, silent, unseen, waiting. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest civilization Earth has ever known is not written in the sky above us, but in the depths beneath us.